Two experienced Indian pilots, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, carrying 260 people. The skies were clear, takeoff was routine, everything seemed normal. 3 seconds after liftoff, both engines shut down. The aircraft began to fall. Emergency alarms triggered. The ram air turbine deployed. And inside the cockpit, the flight recorder captured a chilling question. Why did you cut off? I didn't. 32 seconds later, the aircraft slammed into the ground. No survivors. This is the terrifying story of Air India flight AI-171. A story that's now haunting aviation experts across the globe, because it may have been caused by something as small as a switch. June 22nd, 2025. A quiet summer morning in Ahmedabad. Flight AI-171 was preparing for departure to London Gatwick. On board were 248 passengers and 12 crew members, including 2 highly experienced pilots. Captain Sumeet Sabharwal, 56 years old, with more than 15,000 flight hours, and First Officer Clive, 32 years old, with over 3,200 hours of experience. The aircraft, a state-of-the-art Boeing 787 Dreamliner, began its takeoff roll at 11:08 a.m. It lifted off the runway with ease. But then, less than 10 seconds into the flight, something unimaginable happened. The aircraft reached just over 600 feet, and both engines, one after the other, shut down. No warning signs, no bird strike, no fire, no failure indicators, just silence. The pilots attempted to restart the engines. The switches were returned from cutoff back to run, but it was already too late. At that altitude, jet engines don't restart fast enough. They need airflow, time, and altitude. Flight AI-171 had none of those. A mayday call was sent, and at just 32 seconds after takeoff, the plane crashed into a residential area. 260 people on board were killed. 19 more on the ground lost their lives. The final toll, 279 souls. And now, the question remains. What brought down one of the world's most advanced aircraft in less than a minute? Investigators turned to the black boxes. The flight data and cockpit voice recorders revealed something alarming. Both fuel control switches, the levers that control fuel supply to the engines, had moved from run to cut off. These switches are not supposed to be moved accidentally. They have a locking mechanism. To shut down an engine, a pilot must lift the switch over a mechanical latch and push it to cut off. It's designed this way to avoid accidental shutdown caused by turbulence, knee bumps, or human error. But in 2018, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration issued a special advisory. It warned that on some Boeing 787s, these switches were being installed with the locking feature disengaged. This meant the switch could potentially move, even with a small bump or touch. The FAA recommended inspections to all Dreamliner operators, but Air India didn't act because the advisory was not mandatory. It was marked informational only. In 2023, Air India's own maintenance records reported that the fuel control switches were inspected and marked as normal. But were they? The flight recorder shows that just seconds after liftoff, Engine 1's fuel switch moved to cutoff. 1 second later, Engine 2 followed. There was no mechanical fault in the engines, no evidence of tampering, no cockpit fire, but the switches had moved, either manually by accident or due to a vulnerability never corrected. At 18 seconds into the flight, the pilots flipped the Engine 1 switch back to run. 4 seconds later, Engine 2 switch followed. They tried to restart the engines. The system responded. Fuel began flowing again, but there wasn't enough time for the engines to relight, and no altitude to glide. At 27 seconds, a mayday call was issued. At 32 seconds, the aircraft hit the ground. A Boeing Dreamliner, brought down by what may have been one tiny switch. The cockpit voice recorder caught a single moment of confusion. Why did you cut off? I didn't. That line has since echoed across aviation forums, newsrooms, and courtrooms because it tells us everything and nothing. Was it a mistake, a bump, a moment of miscommunication, or was the switch never properly locked? If cockpit cameras had been installed, we might know, but they weren't. Despite years of calls from investigators and safety boards, cockpit video recorders remain optional, opposed by pilot unions who cite privacy concerns. And once again, in the aftermath of tragedy, we're left guessing. The preliminary report by India's Air Accident Investigation Bureau was released 3 weeks later. It confirmed that the switches were manually moved to cut off. No technical fault was found with the aircraft. No recommendations were made to Boeing, which means all attention now turns to the cockpit. But many say that conclusion feels too convenient. In India's last 2 major crashes involving Boeing aircraft in 2010 and 2020, final reports also blamed pilot error. Now, some are asking if this is a pattern. Is it easier to blame the people who can no longer speak? Pilot unions have pushed back hard. They remind us that Captain Sabharwal and First Officer Kunder were highly trained and had clean records. They had passed recent simulator assessments. There were no signs of fatigue, illness, or negligence. And yet, the suspicion lingers. Because if the pilots didn't touch the switches, then what did? The answer may lie in that 2018 FAA advisory, the one that Air India never acted on, the one that warned of unlocked switches. Because if that switch had stayed locked like it was supposed to, we might not be telling this story. A switch, less than 2 inches wide, possibly installed without its lock. Could that have killed 279 people? It's hard to accept, but harder to ignore. And the anger isn't just about what happened. It's about what could have been prevented. The warning was there. The fix was simple. The cost was minimal. But no action was taken. And now, families are left with grief and questions. Should cockpit video be mandatory? Should safety advisories be treated as binding? Should Boeing be held accountable for potential design oversights? The final report may still be months away, but one truth is already clear. A modern aircraft, 2 capable pilots, a routine flight, all undone by something that may have been completely avoidable. The most haunting line from the entire investigation remains just 5 words. Why did you cut off? I didn't. Sometimes answers are locked away, and sometimes they were never locked at all. Until that changes, the skies may still carry shadows of what we failed to fix on the ground. Let this not be another mystery we forget, but a warning we finally heed. Air India flight, AI-171, 279 lives, and just 1 switch.